Friday night. Somewhere around 1984, the school week is over. The station wagon pulls out of the driveway with the windows cracked and the radio on. And the only question that matters is where you're going for pizza, not whether you're going. That part was already decided. Friday was pizza night in most of America. It had been for years. But in the early 1980s, pizza wasn't just food. It was an event, a destination, a reward system built around report cards, little league wins, birthdays, and the simple fact that the week was finally done. And the places you went, the places your parents drove to without checking a phone, without reading a review, without comparing prices online, were chains that felt permanent. They had parking lots full of minivans and wood-paneled wagons. They had neon signs you could see from 2 blocks away. They had jukeboxes, arcade cabinets, buffet lines, and birthday party rooms that smelled like candle wax and garlic bread. By 1985, America had more than 15,000 pizza restaurants operating under national and regional chain names, not counting independents, not counting the mom-and-pop shops on every corner, just the chains, the ones with matching signs, matching menus, and matching paper playmats that kids colored with crayons while waiting for the food. Most of those chains are gone now. Not all of them, but the ones that defined Friday nights in the 70s and 80s, the ones where your family had a usual booth and the waitress knew your dad's name, those places disappeared so quietly that most people didn't notice until years later, when the building became a mattress store or a cell phone shop, and something about the strip mall just didn't feel the same anymore. This is about 6 of them, 6 pizza chains that were everywhere in 1980s America, 6 places that millions of kids remember clearly. The smell, the noise, the sticky tabletops, the taste of that specific pizza that no other chain ever quite replicated, and 6 stories about how something that felt like it would last forever quietly closed its doors and never came back. If you were a kid between 1980 and 1992 and your town had a ShowBiz Pizza Place, you didn't need to be told twice. That building, usually a freestanding box in a suburban shopping center, was the most exciting place within driving distance. Not because of the pizza, because of the robots. ShowBiz Pizza Place opened its first location in Kansas City, Missouri in March 1980. The concept came from Robert Brock, a Texas entrepreneur who had been part of the original Pizza Time theater venture, the company that became Chuck E. Cheese. After a business split with Nolan Bushnell, Brock went his own direction and partnered with a young animatronics engineer from Orlando named Aaron Fechter. Fechter had built something called the Rock-afire Explosion, a full animatronic band featuring characters like Billy Bob the Bear, Fats Geronimo the Gorilla on keyboards, Duke LaRue the dog on drums, and Mitzi Mozzarella, the girl mouse who sang lead. These weren't simple figures that moved their mouths. They danced, they told jokes, they performed full choreographed shows synced to music with stage lights and curtain reveals and audience interaction. For a 7-year-old in 1983, walking into a ShowBiz Pizza Place was overwhelming. The noise hit you first. Arcade machines beeping and ringing from every direction, skee-ball lanes clattering, kids yelling, the animatronic band playing a cover of a pop song at full volume from behind a stage curtain. The carpet was dark, patterned to hide stains. The lighting was dim except for the neon. The air smelled like rising dough and machine oil and birthday cake frosting. And then the curtain opened and the robots started playing. At its peak, ShowBiz Pizza Place had over 200 locations across the United States. Birthday parties there with a gold standard. Your parents reserved a party room, a host brought out the cake, and at some point during the evening, one of the animatronic characters, usually Billy Bob, would sing happy birthday to you by name, which was achieved by a staff member backstage triggering a pre-recorded track. But behind the scenes, the company was struggling. Competition with Chuck E. Cheese was fierce and expensive. In 1984, Pizza Time Theater went bankrupt, and Brock's company acquired it. By 1992, the decision was made to rebrand all ShowBiz locations as Chuck E. Cheese. The Rock-afire Explosion characters were removed and replaced with the Chuck E. Cheese cast. Aaron Fechter's creations were pulled from the stages, and most were destroyed or warehoused. The last ShowBiz Pizza Place sign came down in the early 90s. The robots that had defined a childhood for millions of American kids were gone. A few survived in storage, maintained by collectors and obsessive fans who would spend decades restoring them. But the experience, the specific combination of bad lighting, loud music, sticky tables, and a gorilla playing keyboards, that was over. And somehow, even now, people who walked into a ShowBiz at age 6 can still describe exactly what it sounded like. Before ShowBiz, before Chuck E. Cheese, before pizza became entertainment, there was Shakey's. And Shakey's understood something that the later chains forgot. You didn't need robots. You just needed a piano, a pitcher of root beer, and enough noise to make kids feel like they were getting away with something. Shakey's Pizza Parlor was founded in 1954 by Sherwood "Shakey" Johnson in Sacramento, California. Johnson got his nickname from a nerve condition that made his hands tremble, and he turned it into a brand. The original concept was simple: thin crust pizza, draft beer, and live ragtime or Dixieland piano music played by a guy on a stand-up piano near the front of the restaurant. The decor was designed to feel like an 1890s saloon: red and white checkered tablecloths, gas lamp replicas on the walls, old-timey signs, and staff wearing straw hats and suspenders. By the mid-1970s, Shakey's had over 500 locations across the United States. It was one of the largest pizza chains in the country. The menu expanded to include fried chicken, mojo potatoes, thick-cut, seasoned, deep-fried, and a lunch buffet that became legendary in suburban communities. The Bunch of Lunch, as it was eventually called, offered all-you-can-eat pizza, chicken, potatoes, and salad for a price that felt almost unreasonable. Families came back week after week. What kids remember most is the noise. Shakey's was never quiet. The piano player banged away on ragtime standards, families talked over each other, pitchers clinked on wooden tables. The kitchen was visible through a window, and you could watch the cooks tossing dough and pulling pies from the oven while you waited. There were no arcade machines in the early years. The entertainment was the atmosphere itself, the communal chaos of families eating together in a room that felt like a party, even on a Tuesday. But the American pizza market changed in the 1980s. Delivery became king. Domino's promised 30 minutes or free. Pizza Hut expanded aggressively. Shakey's, which had always been a dine-in experience, couldn't compete with the convenience of pizza arriving at your front door. Locations began closing across the country. By the early 1990s, Shakey's had fewer than 60 restaurants remaining in the United States. The chain survived overseas, particularly in the Philippines and Japan, where it remains popular today. But in America, Shakey's became a ghost. A few locations still operate in California and Washington State. Walk into one and the checkered tablecloths are still there, and the mojo potatoes still taste the same, but the piano player is gone. The noise is quieter, and the parking lot has room. Godfather's Pizza didn't try to be fun. It didn't have animatronics or ragtime piano or ball pits. It tried to be serious about pizza, and for a while, that was enough. The chain was founded in 1973 by Willie Thyssen in Omaha, Nebraska. The concept leaned into the Godfather mythology: dark wood interiors, red vinyl booths, Italian-American imagery on the walls, and a logo featuring a fedora-wearing silhouette that was unmistakable from the road. The tagline was blunt: a pizza you can't refuse. It worked. By the mid-1980s, Godfather's had grown to more than 900 locations across the United States. It was the 5th largest pizza chain in the country. The pizza itself had a reputation: thick crust, generous toppings, a slightly sweet sauce that regulars could identify blindfolded. The menu wasn't complicated. You ordered a pizza, you got breadsticks, you sat in a booth with your family, and the food came out hot and heavy on a metal stand in the center of the table. In 1986, Pillsbury hired Herman Cain to turn around the struggling chain. Cain closed underperforming locations, tightened operations, and led a management buyout in 1988. Under his leadership, the chain stabilized but never recovered its former scale. The aggressive expansion of Pizza Hut, Domino's, and Little Caesars in the late 80s squeezed mid-tier chains from every direction. Godfathers couldn't match their marketing budgets, their delivery infrastructure, or their pricing. What made Godfather's different was also what made it vulnerable. It was a sit-down restaurant in an era that was rapidly shifting to delivery and carry-out. The dark wood booths and the fedora logo felt warm and familiar in 1983. By 1993, they felt like relics. Locations closed steadily through the 90s and 2000s. Godfather's still exists today, roughly 400 locations, mostly in smaller Midwestern and Southern towns, many of them inside gas station convenience stores. The pizza is still recognizable, but the experience of sitting in a dark booth on a Friday night, watching your dad carry a large combo pie on a metal stand back to the table while the jukebox played, that version of Godfather's is gone. What remains is the name, the logo, and a certain pizza recipe that a certain generation can still taste from memory. If you grew up in Texas or anywhere in the South, you didn't say, "Let's go get pizza." You said, "Let's go to Gatti's." And everyone knew what that meant. It meant the buffet. Mr. Gatti's was founded in 1969 by James Yore in Kerrville, Texas. The original restaurant was a small dine-in pizza shop, but the concept that made Mr. Gatti's a regional empire was the all-you-can-eat pizza buffet. By the late 1970s, the chain had refined the model to an art form, a long buffet line with 8 to 12 different pizzas rotating constantly, plus pasta, salad, and dessert pizza with fruit topping and sweet glaze. For families on a budget, and in the early 80s, that was most families, Mr. Gatti's was a miracle. One price, unlimited food. No math required. You paid at the door, grabbed a tray, and ate until you couldn't move. Kids went back to the buffet line 4, 5, 6 times. Nobody judged. Nobody counted plates. The social contract was simple. Eat as much as you want, bus your own table, and don't run near the buffet line. By the mid-1980s, Mr. Gatti's had over 300 locations, primarily across Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Mississippi, and the Southeast. Many of them added game rooms, not full-scale arcades like ShowBiz, but enough cabinets and skee-ball lanes to keep kids busy between buffet runs. Some larger locations became Gatti towns, full entertainment complexes with bumper cars, go-karts, and indoor play areas. But the same forces that killed the other chains hit Mr. Gatti's too. Delivery competition, rising real estate costs, changing demographics. The buffet model, which was built on volume and low food costs, struggled as ingredient prices climbed. Locations outside the core southern markets closed first. Then the smaller town locations started going dark. Mr. Gatti's still operates, mostly as Gatti Town entertainment centers and a handful of traditional buffet restaurants, primarily in Texas. But the original experience, the one where your family piled into the car on a Wednesday night because dad didn't feel like cooking and you knew you'd eat 4 plates of pepperoni and 2 dessert pizzas, that belongs to a specific era that isn't coming back. If Shakey's was the saloon, Straw Hat was the barbershop quartet. Same era, same general vibe, old-timey decor, family atmosphere, pizza and pictures, but with a California polish that made it feel slightly more wholesome, slightly more suburban, and entirely its own thing. Straw Hat Pizza was founded in 1959 in San Leandro, California. The name came from the straw boater hats that the staff wore, and the restaurants were decorated with a turn-of-the-century theme, striped awnings, tin ceiling replicas, vintage posters, and a warmth that felt like walking into someone's idea of a small-town past that may never have actually existed. It didn't matter. It felt real, and it felt welcoming. By the late 1970s, Straw Hat had grown to over 350 locations, primarily across California, Oregon, Washington, and Nevada. The chain was a fixture in West Coast shopping centers and suburban strip malls. The pizza was hand-tossed, the crust was slightly thicker than Shakey's, and the salad bar, a mandatory feature in every 80s pizza restaurant, was generous and well-maintained. There was usually a small arcade section near the entrance and a party room in the back that stayed booked most weekends. What people remember about Straw Hat is harder to define than the others. It wasn't flashy, it didn't have a gimmick or a mascot or a famous spokesperson. It was just reliably, consistently good at being a family pizza restaurant. You went there because it was there, because it had always been there, because your parents went there when they were dating and now they brought you and your sister every other Friday and the waitress already knew you wanted root beer. The decline came in the late 80s and accelerated through the 90s. The same delivery wars, the same pricing pressures, the same shift away from dine-in. Straw Hat's franchisees began closing locations throughout the 1990s. By the early 2000s, the chain had shrunk to a fraction of its former size. Today, fewer than 30 Straw Hat locations remain, almost all in Northern California. If you grew up on the West Coast in the 70s or 80s and the words straw hat trigger something, a smell, a color, a feeling of being small in a vinyl booth while your parents talked over a pitcher and you peeled pepperoni off your slice one disc at a time, then you already know what was lost. It wasn't the pizza, it was the Friday night. Every region of America had its chain, the one that didn't exist outside a 4 or 5 state radius, the one that people from other parts of the country had never heard of. In the upper Midwest, Iowa, Illinois, Minnesota, Wisconsin, the Dakotas, that chain was Happy Joe's. And if you mention Happy Joe's to someone from Davenport or Dubuque, watch what happens to their face. Happy Joe's was founded in 1972 by Happy Joe Whitty in Davenport, Iowa. Whitty was a local businessman who believed pizza restaurants should feel like birthday parties all the time. The interiors were bright, red, white, yellow. There were striped awnings inside the dining room. Ice cream was as important as pizza, and the signature item, the one that Happy Joe's invented and that no national chain has ever replicated properly, was the taco pizza. Taco pizza, a pizza crust topped with refried beans or pizza sauce, seasoned ground beef, cheddar and mozzarella, baked until bubbling, then finished after it came out of the oven with shredded lettuce, diced tomato, and crust tortilla chips piled on top. It shouldn't have worked. It worked completely. It became the single most ordered item at Happy Joe's for decades, and it spawned countless imitations across the Midwest that never quite got it right. At its peak in the mid-1980s, Happy Joe's had roughly 70 locations across Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Missouri, and North Dakota. That doesn't sound like much compared to Godfather's 900 or Shakey's 500, but in the communities it served, Happy Joe's wasn't a chain, it was an institution. It was where you went after Little League games, where your birthday party was, where your grandmother took you when you visited in the summer. The ice cream counter was part of the experience in a way that set Happy Joe's apart from every other pizza chain. You could get a sundae, a malt, a banana split, or a cone after your meal, and most families did. The combination of pizza and ice cream under one roof in a bright room full of families created an atmosphere that felt genuinely joyful in a way that the darker, louder chains couldn't replicate. Happy Joe's still exists, around 30 locations, mostly in Iowa and a few surrounding states. The taco pizza is still on the menu, the ice cream counter is still there, but many of the locations that defined small-town Friday nights in the 80s and 90s have closed. The buildings sit empty or converted. The sign is gone from the strip mall, and a generation of Midwesterners has been trying to explain taco pizza to people from the coasts ever since. Here's the part that's harder to say. These weren't great restaurants. The pizza at most of these chains was good, not extraordinary. The dining rooms were noisy and sticky. The arcade machines ate your quarters and half of them had broken joysticks. The birthday party rooms smelled like old frosting and spilled soda. The bathrooms were always a little questionable, but none of that mattered because these places weren't about the food. They were about the ritual. They were about the car ride, the anticipation, the argument in the back seat about who got to sit by the window, the parking lot that was always full on Friday, the door that was heavier than you expected, the blast of warm air and noise when you walked in, the moment when your parents said, "Go play," and handed you $1 in quarters, and for the next 30 minutes, you were free. They were about families eating together in public, about tables full of people passing plates and refilling cups and talking over each other, about a version of American dining that didn't require reservations, didn't judge your clothes, didn't make you feel like you were spending too much or too little. You paid your money, you got your pizza, and you sat there as long as you wanted. What replaced them was faster, cheaper, and more convenient. You could call Domino's and have pizza at your door in 30 minutes. You could pick up a Little Caesars hot and ready for $5 and eat it on the couch. You could order online and never speak to another person. The friction was gone. The waiting was gone. The driving was gone. And with it, the Friday night was gone too. The American pizza industry today generates over $46 billion annually. There are more pizza options available to more people in more formats than at any point in history. You can order Detroit-style, Neapolitan, New York foldable, deep dish, stuffed crust, cauliflower crust, gluten-free, vegan, artisanal, wood-fired, coal-fired, and gas station. You can have it delivered by car, by drone, by robot. You can track your your pizza in real time on your phone from dough to doorstep. And none of it tastes like that pizza tasted. Not because the pizza was better than, it probably wasn't, but because the context was different. You were hungry, you were with your family, you had waited all week. The booth was vinyl and the table was wobbly and the napkin dispenser never worked right. The pizza came out on a metal stand and your dad told you to wait because it was too hot, and you burned the roof of your mouth anyway because you were 7 and you didn't care. That context, the physical presence, the shared anticipation, the communal noise created a flavor that no recipe can reproduce. It was the taste of Friday, the taste of a week being over, the taste of being a kid in a place that was built, however imperfectly, for kids. If you walked into a ShowBiz Pizza Place and watched Billy Bob sing, if you sat at a checkered tablecloth at Shakey's and listened to the ragtime piano, if you pulled into a Godfather's parking lot and ordered a combo in a dark booth, if you hit the buffet line at Mr. Gatti's for the 5th time and nobody said a word, if you peeled pepperoni off a straw hat slice in a shopping center in Sacramento or San Jose, if you ate taco pizza at Happy Joe's in Davenport and got a sundae after, drop a comment. Tell us which chain was yours. Tell us which town it was in. Tell us what you ordered, how old you were, and who you were with. Because these buildings are gone now, most of them. The signs are down, the arcade machines are unplugged, the buffet lines are empty, the birthday party rooms are silent. But the memory of walking through that door on a Friday night, the noise, the heat, the smell, the feeling that this was exactly where you were supposed to be, that memory is still there, and nobody who lived it has ever forgotten what it tasted like.